It is time now for this week's Sustainable Soy Update as we talk about a couple projects from the United Soybean Board, including the GROW project as well as Take Action. Joining us for a conversation, Dr. Christy Sprague. She's a professor, crops and soils sciences program director, and extension specialist at Michigan State University. And Christy, thanks so much for joining us here on this week's Sustainable Soy Update. Hope you're doing well.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's kick this off. Tell me about GROW, getting rid of weeds. Tell me about the GROW organization. Give us a little background.
Yeah, so the GROW organization basically started looking at kind of some alternatives to chemical control and looking at trying to figure out how those things can actually fit. This is a project right now that's funded by several sources, including the United Soybean Board, so that's very important. And it's really a scientist-led network that's across the United States.
All right. Well, I'm thinking about getting rid of weeds, of course, and let's talk about integrated weed management. Why is that maybe the answer to herbicide-resistant weeds? Can you tell us more?
Sure. I think one of the things that we've run into over the last several years, we're seeing a lot more weeds that have become resistant to multiple different herbicides that are used. And this was a real big impact, particularly when we started seeing glyphosate or Roundup resistant weeds. And as that happened, we started kind of pulling back and looking at some of our older technologies and realizing that we have resistance to some of them also. So we really need to look at an integrated approach to help manage some of those herbicide resistant weeds. And some of that might have to do with cultural, mechanical. There's a lot of different things that we can do. Even prevention is one of those things that we can do to help supplement some of those herbicides for weed control.
Thinking about integrated weed management, diving in a little more, what are some of maybe the ABCs, so to speak, of integrated weed management?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is to know what weeds you have out in your field, right? Scouting, that's probably one of the most important things. And if you have certain weeds that are resistant, making a plan to make sure that you can manage those. Most of us are still using herbicides as our backbone of any sort of control strategy, but we can use things such as, planting dates, row spacings, plant populations. In addition to, there's a lot more work with cover crops and trying to integrate that with herbicides to help suppress some of those weeds. So we're not completely relying on just the herbicides for control.
Well, and again, these programs we're talking about today are United Soybean Board projects, GROW, getting rid of weeds. And then another one is Take Action. Let's talk about that. Tell me about the Take Action educational platform and its goal, Christy.
Yeah, so Take Action actually is something that we've had around for a while. So in 2013, a group of us weed scientists kind of sat around a table and said, hey, we need to get a unified message out there, and that needs to be unified with industry. So with that, starting at that time, the United Soybean Board helped fund this project moving forward and really looking at having all the weed scientists, especially our extension educators, as well as the industry, kind of coming behind a unified message and getting information out to growers to make sure that they can manage their herbicide resistant weeds, as well as helping really kind of preserve some of the current technologies that were coming out, especially as we were starting to see new soybean herbicide resistant traits coming out that we could use other herbicides there. We didn't want to lose those right away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're talking with Dr. Christy Sprague from Michigan State University on this week's Sustainable Soy Update. And let's talk about this. Why is it important for farmers to be aware of soy checkoff investments like GROW and Take Action? Christy.
Yeah, I think it's really important because it's from the standpoint of your dollars are going to help educate and make sure that we're growing a sustainable soybean crop, right? So we want to make sure we get good weed control and that we can sustain that weed control for future generations. So with the soybean funding, that really helps help push the research envelope as well as getting that education out.
It's very, very important. And I think to a point you made earlier as well, things like scouting and having all sorts of tools in the toolbox, kind of, I always like to talk about that. Those are important things to make sure you get out there, scout your fields, and the ability for us to have as many tools in the toolbox as possible to manage and grow a great crop is so important. And projects like this help us do that, right, Christy?
Yes, most definitely, because it helps us even look at some of the things that are maybe a little bit further outside the box. Like more recently, people have been looking at weed seed destruction coming through a combine. So that's one way to make sure that that weed seed's not getting back into the field.
Absolutely. Anything else you would like to add on this week's Sustainable Soy update as we near the end of this segment?
Yeah, I guess one of the things I'd probably just like to put out there is have growers look at, the two websites, either growiwm.org or iwilltakeaction.com. And there's a lot of good resources there, and we continue to update those each week.
Absolutely. And again, those websites, growiwm.org or iwilltakeaction.com. And those are both great projects from the United Soybean Board. And of course, you can go to the United Soybean Board website at unitedsoybean.org for more information as well. Very important topic, thinking about weed management and more. And thanks for joining us on this week's Sustainable Soy Update to tell us more about Grow and Take Action, Dr. Christy Sprague with Michigan State University. Christy, thanks so much, and we'll look forward to talking again in the future.
All right. Thank you very much.